So I'm inventing more crap about the language game. Guess what this is? This is a peace sign with the person in the middle. That is three types of people defined by the language game. I can't even wear my goofy sunglasses because of the ring light. I'm going to tell you what those three people do because they define everything. Language defines philosophy. I got to quit waving my hands in front of the language defines philosophy. Let me tell you why. Everything is language. You talk to a person, obviously, you're using language. When you call somebody, when you write something down, even expressions, even when they're not words, are a form of communication and language. More importantly, what goes on in your mental life every second of every day, including when you're sleeping, is language, which means when you're thinking what you want to do, you're talking to yourself. When you think how you feel about another person or what you want to say or trying to talk yourself into doing something, you're using that language. And usually they're words. Usually they're as simple as the language you use with other people. That's already a minute into this stupid video that's supposed to be short. So there's three types of people. We know that language defines everything. And so when we put these three people into language groups, we're pretty much telling you the basics of how you divide up people, the most important way to divide them up. One, first group inside the language game. These are people trapped. This is the person, let me out. That's the person trapped in the language game, duct taped inside Plato's cave of made up shit, memes, sayings, expressions, and my favorite word, propaganda. Those people are victims, prisoners of the propaganda. Second group of people, this is the majority. This is 80% of the people. This is 50% of Americans. In general, the majority of people are 1 foot in the language game, 1 foot out. They have a bigger foot in the language game for a very specific reason. It's because all their friends are in the language game also. That's how they bond with other people. That's how they keep their group exclusive. That's how they get rewards and punishments, is by doing the right thing or the wrong thing in the language game. So they're big foots in the language game and they have a foot outside the language game, which is telling them maybe I need to read a book. Maybe I need to do some critical thinking. Maybe what I just said was wrong, et cetera, et cetera. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. The third group of people, this is the most important one and the least likely for you to ever meet. This is the person outside the language game. And there's four of them on the planet right now. And so I'm going to tell you a couple little signs how to identify some of these things. So if you're stuck in the language game, you're what's called a literalist. That means things that are reinforced, rules that don't make sense, common practices and expressions and propaganda mean everything to you. Your entire identity is tied to that propaganda. If that propaganda is violated, if it's argued against, if someone wants to get rid of that particular idea, if they say, "No, babies and children are bad." What? No, that's my biggest propaganda is everything in the world is babies and children, and the adults don't matter. Propaganda, bro. So people in the language game, the whatever, 20% of the planet Earth that's rooted entirely in the language game are what's called literalists. They take things too literally, they're too defined by the words and the ideas within the language games. Remember, there's tons of language games. There's literally millions of language games. Any one person can juggle 5 to 10 language games. So they're in the Christian language game. They're in the male language game. They're in the American language game. They're in the scientist language, in the conservative language game, super conservative, right, moral language game. That's my favorite. That means you're an insect. The point is, you've got the people in the language game, which are called the literalists. You've got this majority of 1 foot in, 1 foot out that are normal people that are the people, Ayn Rand, Sigmund Freud. We're talking about being able to be improved upon. These are people that can read and get better. These are people that can improve and do things with their lives. Why? Because it's an improvement to get out of that language game. You can identify it. You can understand it. You can even use it like I have to do to get through the day, bro. But if you're defined by the language game or games, you move toward that literalist perspective, that part of the spectrum where you're sometimes literalist, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And then you have the person outside the language game, the four. people who you're never going to meet. Those people cannot be understood very well because by definition, they're speaking a different language. And so it's a language that's not super identifiable. It's not, oh, that's French. Let's plug it into Google. Oh, that's Russian. Let's put it into the internet and translate it really quick, which I've had to do a bunch of time with these dumb comments. The point is, for Russian, the point is the people outside the language game are speaking a language where the concepts are different, not just the words, not even just what we think of as language, but the whole worldview is so different that it's not even something that can be identified by people inside the game. All they see is asshole, confusing, insulting. Autism is my favorite one. Anyone that's got a foot outside the language game has a foot in the autism spectrum because no one understands it. Why don't they buy into my emotion? Must be autism, must be narcissism. No, it's not, bro. None of those things. It's a foot outside the language game. They're trying to get better. They just read Civilization and its discontents, and they realize that you get rewarded for participating in society in one big language game. So what can you do to improve your understanding of the language game? Because I'm running out of time. And so the first thing is read Sigmund Freud, read Nietzsche. Nietzsche was really a philosopher about language games. He studied the etymology of what we might call the Christian monotheistic language game, including other monotheistic religions. But what he studied was how those trap people become everyone's identity and how they don't work very well with reality. So go read Nietzsche, go read the genealogy and get some introduction to the real philosophies regarding language game. You have Wittgenstein going on and on about it, even though his are different. You have Rand, who is really this objectivist, crazy person, still kind of a literalist who identifies the same stuff via Nietzsche about the language game. My mic's probably out after all this talking. So that's one thing you can do. Guess what? Another thing you can do, watch Fight Club. What do you think Fight Club is? Most people are like, tell me about the Matrix. No, when I taught, I would do the Matrix for one day. Hey, everybody, let's do, glitches in the Matrix, themes in the Matrix, Baudrillard in the Matrix. Let's talk about postmodernism via the Matrix. Fight Club, that could be a whole semester. I met Chuck Palahniuk. He was a total douche, the novelist who wrote Fight Club, the novel. Those rights were all bought by David Fincher or by the producers who hired David Fincher. They all got together, basically. But they bought those rights and kicked Chick out. I talked to Palahniuk one time, and he was like, I have no idea what they were doing with that movie. No, I know you don't, because you're dumb. And that movie was rich. That movie, Fight Club, is about the language game. That's going to be one of the upcoming videos, is going to be Fight Club and the language game. And I'm going to tell you why Freud influenced the language game. Nietzsche, of course, influenced the language game, even maybe Rand a little bit, but how these people influenced the language game within the movie Fight Club, which is about how groups get together, they create their own language and worldview, and then they lose touch with reality and they go south quickly. Go look at Mega. So that's the video. That's intro to the language game. Hopefully we'll get to the Fight Club video soon. Thanks for shopping.